It's an honor to be here this evening to help celebrate this honor that has been brought to Professor Gleiser, who has done so much to draw attention to the fact that science is a profound revelation of human nature and human brilliance, itself appropriately a subject of awe. A few months ago, I picked up a book by the Yale physicist Henry Martineau, published in 1950, titled The Nature of Physical Reality. I like to look at books from the mid-century on this subject to see how the conversation develops. This writer says something I have not seen elsewhere in a literature substantially under the sway of logical positivism. He says, to deny the presence, indeed the necessary presence, of metaphysical elements in any successful science is to be blind to the obvious, although to foster such blindness has become a highly sophisticated endeavor in our time. The book is largely taken up with quantum physics. I find it to be true that the more receptive a writer is to this remarkable new physics, the less insistent he is on the idea that science, by definition, must adhere to the assumptions of radical empiricism. If this seems inevitable, there are still many radical empiricists, self-proclaimed defenders of science, to prove that it is not. Science and metaphysics are alienated sisters. They are two manifestations of one phenomenon, human wonder at human circumstance. From the earth we stand on to the dreams we dream, to our being creatures in time. Neither science nor religion can make an account of time. It is a Heraclitean river that carries us with it and everything else as well. Both science and religion are too often confident that they know the essential things, or at least that they know what the great answers will look like when they find their way to them. But the oldest mysteries abide. Science faults religion, metaphysics at ground level, for dogmatism. Dogma can be found in any religion in isolation, but religion is global, clearly a much larger phenomenon than any local tenet is sufficient to capture or to discredit. Science is seen as soulless and pedestrian, but in its cosmos there is a great dark epic of dispersion and cohesion now unfolding, always more astonishing with every glimpse we have of it. Metaphysics could help us consider the fact that this aegon is full of yet unreadable implications for the fate of the universe, its being in time. Absolutely nothing is proved by the fact that myth and mysticism taught the ancients to think at a scale now reckoned in light years. Nothing from a little distance, nevertheless from a little distance it does look as though a prevenient wonder prepared us for the scale and force of a cosmos laggard science is only now discovering. One sister knew that reality had a first moment. Myth, the younger sister said. And so it was and is, but until a few decades ago, only myth could have made such an absolute statement about the nature of things. Quantum seems to negotiate between classical causality and mythic fiat. Let there be, and there was. Why this alienation? Marcelo Gleiser very agreeably calls himself a natural philosopher, a term used by scientists to describe themselves before the Great Schism. He proposes and demonstrates a reintegration of primal joy and attentiveness into science as it is practiced now, to acknowledge the old fascination, itself unaccountable, that has made humankind a race of profound inquirers. There was a long and influential period during which it was widely believed by scientists, too, that scientific progress meant the ultimate demystification of the world. This is the error of mistaking description for explanation. Granting some version of evolution, what is the impetus behind it? Why should there be ostriches and hummingbirds when viruses, those great survivors and niche finders, mastered self-replication and effective immortality eons ago? Accident, they say. Then accident is a genius with an elegant touch and an inexhaustible sense of humor. Be that as it may, at this point we know far too much to imagine that the wonder of existence could ever be diminished by a better knowledge of it. Cotton Mather's The Christian Philosopher, published in 1721, is a compendium of the best scientific thought of his time. For Mather, as for Newton, Boyle, and others, God is very much a given, his existence in no need of demonstration. Therefore, Mather can respond to the brilliance of nature's operations as the psalmist does, with reverent amazement at the world in itself, unburdened by the expectation that it should serve as a theological proof text. No one can dispute that major science was done on these assumptions. Mather says this about Newton's theory of gravity. It is now evident that the most universal principle of gravitation, the spring of almost all the great and regular inanimate motions in the world, answering not at all to the surfaces of bodies by which alone they can act upon one another, but entirely to their solid content, cannot possibly be the result of any motion originally impressed on matter, but must of necessity be caused by something which penetrates the very substance of all bodies and continually puts forth in them a force or power entirely different from that by which matter acts on matter. Gravity is perpetually and actually exerting itself every moment in every part of the world." End of quote. Inevitably, this account of a force that is constant, efficacious, and ubiquitous calls up for Mather and his peers providence and the divine will. Gravity has a center everywhere and a circumference nowhere. Metaphysics could have prepared these variously pious men to describe its in essential ways a force science still does not understand. Marcelo Gleiser proposes that science approach the world with a wider sense of the ways in which reality is knowable, to enlist in its methods and effects the insights offered by compassion and also delight. Thank you.